Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today is part 2 of my 3-part beginner crochet series. If you missed part 1, I showed you how to start and finish crochet projects as well as taking you through the 4, I would say, main stitches that you will come across. And in today's part, I'm going to be taking you through a tutorial for this coaster, which is a really nice, simple, quick and easy beginner friendly project. So for this project I am using 2 different colours of yarn or wool. The weight is double knit and I am using a 4.5mm crochet hook. But as I said in part 1, you can use whatever weight of yarn and whatever hook size you want to. It will just mean that the ending size of your coaster will vary a little bit. Also, just as a reminder, I use UK terminology for my crochet stitches, but I will put the US equivalent up on screen so there's no confusion. I also crochet holding both my hook and my working yarn in my right hand and my project in my left hand, which is not the traditional way, but it still comes up with the same end result. And I do show you how to do all the stitches both ways in part 1. It would also be handy to have some stitch markers. Obviously you do not need this many, you just need 1, and if you don't have stitch markers you can use something like a hair grip or a safety pin or anything just to go through the first stitch of each round, just so that you don't lose track. So because the coaster is round, I'm going to start by creating a magic ring. So just as a quick reminder, you're going to pinch that tail end, cross your working yarn over the top of your fingers and over the top of that tail. Put your hook upside down underneath your first loop here, over that one, pull it up and twist, then go back underneath that same piece and pull through. So we have our magic ring, and I'm then going to chain 2 stitches here. So just yarn over, pull through. Now into this magic ring you are going to want to put 8 half treble crochet stitches. So just as a little reminder of the half treble, you yarn over, insert your hook into the magic ring, yarn over, pull through so that you have 3 loops on your hook, and then you yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops, just like that. I am just going to, if I just take my hook out so that I can see that first stitch just there. It is a little bit harder to see with this wool because it's not as thick, but I'm just going to pop a little stitch marker in there so that I know where that first stitch is. Now, like I said, I find it so much easier to keep an even tension holding my yarn in my right hand. So for the whole of this project I'm going to be holding it in my right hand, but it works exactly the same whichever way you're holding it, so hold it however you feel comfortable. So that's my first half treble crochet stitch. So I'm just going to make another 7 of those into this magic ring. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. That's 2. That's 3, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, that's 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I have my 8 half treble crochet stitches here. If you lose count, you can just count these V's at the top. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That first one that I put my stitch marker on. So you can then pull on the tail end to tighten up that circle. And then I'm going to slip stitch into this first stitch here that I marked with my stitch marker. So just inserting my hook into that stitch, yarn over and pull through both of the loops. Now what you can do at this point is kind of pull up with the hook and also pull down with your finger just to kind of tighten up that slip stitch so that it becomes a bit invisible and doesn't interfere with your project. That's not a necessity, it's just what I like to do. So we're going to do a chain 2 at the start of every single round, but that doesn't count as a stitch. Sometimes it does, and you then would insert a stitch into the top of that chain. But we're not going to do that with this. So you're just going to chain 2. Now to make the coaster grow and get bigger, we are now going to start to increase on each round. So on this second round, we are going to increase in every single stitch. What that means is that rather than just placing one stitch into the top of each stitch from the previous round, we're going to place 2. So again, doing the half treble crochet stitch, you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that exact same stitch that we just did our slip stitch into, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through all 3. And again, just to make life easier, I'm just going to mark the top of that stitch with a stitch marker. So rather than now inserting our next stitch into the next stitch along, we're going to go back into that same stitch and place another half treble crochet. So we now have 2 stitches going into that same stitch from the row below. And we're going to carry on with that all the way around this circle, and at the end you should have 16 half treble crochet stitches in total. So yarn over, now we're going into the next stitch along, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, so you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. Then yarn over and insert your hook back into that same stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So now you have 4 stitches in total, and you now go into the next stitch along. And place 2 stitches in there, so that's 1. And then back into that same place. That's 2. Next stitch along. And if at any point you lose count, you can take your hook out, just make sure you leave a nice loop so that nothing comes undone. And you can just count those V's along the top, so I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I know that I'm halfway. So just carrying on, putting 2 half treble crochet stitches into my next stitch. So that's now 10 stitches in total. Going into the next stitch, this will be 11, and 12. And in the next stitch, 13, and 14, and then into the final stitch we do our last 2, So that's 15 and 16. Now if you didn't tighten up your slip stitch, which is absolutely fine, you might think that you have one final stitch left to work into, but we don't work into that slip stitch. So you can always just count these V's or count the posts of the stitch. So the kind of long bit here, you could count those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. So you now know that you have come to the end of the second round, and we will slip stitch into the top of this first stitch. So just going into this stitch, yarn over and pull through both loops. So we are now on to round 3. We're going to start again with a chain 2. Now this time we're only going to increase every other stitch. So in this first stitch that we just slip stitched into, we're just going to place 1 half treble stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through all 3. And I'm going to mark that first stitch. So that's the first stitch. Now I'm going to yarn over. I'm not going to go back into the same stitch. I'm going straight over to the second stitch along, inserting my hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through all 3. And this stitch is an increase, so I'm going to place another stitch back into that same stitch. A good way to think about it is that this is round 3, so you can count in 3s. So 1 in the next stitch, and then 2 and 3 in the next stitch. And that's another 3, so that's 6 in total. And then we count the next 3, so 1 into the next stitch, and then 2 and 3 into the stitch after that. And you carry on with that process all the way round, and you should end this round with 24 stitches. And for the mathematicians out there, you may be able to work out that that is 3 times 8, which is why counting in 3s is such a handy thing to do on this round. So we're doing the 1 and then the 2, 3 in the next stitch. The 1 and then the 2 and the 3. And you should be ending your round with an increased stitch, so a 2 and a 3. So into this final stitch here, I'm placing 2 half trebles. And you should now have 24 stitches in total. Again, if you want to, you can just count around to make sure. And we're going to slip stitch back into this first stitch. Now you can kind of see where each of your rounds are, so you can, if you look, you can count that this is round 1, this is round 2, and this is round 3. So we're now going on to round 4, and you may have spotted the pattern at this point. So this time we're going to basically do our stitches in counts of 4 rather than 3. So we're going to start by chaining 2, and then we're going to place a half treble back into that stitch that we just slip stitched into. That's stitch number 1. Again, marking that. Then for stitch number 2, we're going to go into the next stitch along. And then rather than going back into that same stitch again, we're then going to do stitches 3 and 4 into the next stitch. So this time we're doing two stitches on their own, and then the increase stitch, which is 2 in the same stitch. So now rather than counting 1 and 2 and 3, you're counting 1, 2 and 3 and 4. So 1 in the next stitch, the next one, so stitch number 2 in the next stitch, and then stitches 3 and 4 both into this next stitch. Okay, so far we have 8, and you will just continue in this pattern. So 1 half treble, 1 half treble, and then 2 in the next one. So that's the increase. 1, 1, 2. So a total of 4. All the way around. Again, you should finish with an increase stitch, so 2 into the same stitch. And you should end this round with 32 stitches. So that's 4 times 8 this time, which is why we count round in 4s. So 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 in the next one. And just continue with that all the way around. We are now at the end of the 4th round, so we now have 32 stitches and just 2 more rounds to go. But for these final 2 rounds, just to give this coaster a bit of extra something, I am going to change colour. So I'm going to change to this yellow wool. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So I'm doing this before I slip stitch. So I've completed that final half treble here, but I haven't yet slip stitched because I'm going to change my wool while I slip stitch. Sounds quite complicated, sounds a bit scary, but I promise it is actually super easy. So I'm going to take out my stitch marker and just insert my hook into this stitch as normal. Now I would normally yarn over with my pink at this point, but what I'm actually going to do is just drop that pink, pick up my yellow, pinch the tail behind and yarn over with the yellow, and then complete my slip stitch as normal. So pull through and pull through the stitch, and then you can just pull on the working end of the pink just to tighten that up, and I've now changed colour to the yellow. So I'm now just going to carry on as normal. So we're now on round 5, so I'm going to start with a chain 2 as normal, and it's the 5th round, so we are going to be working in groups of 5 stitches. And also I like to weave in my ends at this point as I go. I crochet over them. So with the tail end of the yellow and also the working end of the pink, when I insert my hook into the stitch, I'm also just wrapping those two ends over the hook and just kind of joining them with the stitch. So then when I yarn over and pull through, I'm pulling through the stitch as well as those two. 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. So that's stitch 1. We do stitch 2 into the next stitch along. Then stitch 3. And then we do stitch 4 and stitch 5 both into the same stitch. So it's 3 half trebles and then an increase. And you're just going to repeat that pattern all the way round. You should end your round with an increase, so 2 stitches into the same stitch. And you should finish with 40 stitches in total. And you can just carry on crocheting over these ends until you get to the end of the tail one, and then you can just snip the pink. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 together. So my yellow end is getting very, very short now, so I'm just going to cut the end of the pink. I can move that out the way, And I'm now just going to carry on as normal, but I'm no longer going to go over these ends, so I can just kind of push them out the way. If you ever lose track of where you are, look for where there are 2 stitches going in together. It's normally quite easy to spot because they'll kind of go down in a bit of like a V shape. So if you ever lose track of where you are, count the rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you know this is your 5th round, which means that these 2 stitches going in together are 4 and 5, which would mean that I'm on 1, 2, so I'm about to do number 3. Just a little handy tip if you ever get stuck. 3, and then doing the 4 and the 5 together in the next stitch. So we're now on to the final 5. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 5 into the same stitch. Now if you want to, you could leave it at this point, but I think this is still just a little bit smaller than I would ideally like for a coaster, so I'm going to do one more round, which will be round 6. So going to slip stitch, and then chain 2. And this time we're just continuing that pattern, so now we're going to work in blocks of 6. So we'll do 1, 2, 3 and 4 all on their own, so 4 individual half trebles, and then 5 and 6 both into the same stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 and 6. Okay, and just continue with that all the way around with that pattern of 6. Again, you should finish with an increase, so the 5 and the 6, and you should finish also with 48 stitches. So sorry that the focus is going a little bit in and out, but I just wanted to show you again with the more traditional way. So that's stitch 1. It's just the yarn over, insert your hook into that next stitch, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over and pull through all 3. That's stitch number 2. Again, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. That's number 3. But as you can see, it's creating the exact same stitch whichever way you hold your yarn. So as I've already said, just go for whatever feels most comfortable for you. But that's number 4. And then doing stitches 5 and 6 both into that next stitch. So it's the final 6 to go. So there we go, so I am now happy with this coaster size. I'm going to stop at this point. If you want to keep going, then you absolutely can. You just continue with that same pattern. So if you're going to do the next round, which would be round 7, you do in sections of 7 stitches and so on and so forth. You will find, because we always do our increases in the same place, that it sort of becomes this almost sort of hexagonal shape rather than circular. That's completely fine and completely normal. You can sort of try and stretch it out to make it more rounded if you want to, but personally I'm not overly fussed on it being slightly hexagonal. So to finish off, I'm just going to slip stitch. Now I forgot to put the stitch marker on at the beginning of this round, so if you do the same and you're confused about where that first stitch is, it's really easy to work out. There are a couple of different ways that you can do it here. The first way is to look for the first post of the stitch, so that's just here, and then go up. From the first post, go up and slightly to the right, and then that in there is your first stitch. The other way to do it is to look at where you slip stitched in the previous round and count the chains. You know, we did 1, 2 chains, so that's 1, 2, and then this is the stitch. So inserting my hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull through again. And like I said before, I like to always just do a chain 1 and then cutting my wool, leaving a tail, and just pull that through and pull it tight. And then you just need to weave in your ends. So these 2 we already crocheted over, so I'm happy just to snip them. So then I just need to weave in my yellow and my pink. Again, there's no really right or wrong way to do this. As long as those ends feel secure, that's all that matters. You want to try as much as possible when weaving in ends to stick to loops kind of at the back of the work rather than allowing yourself to go kind of through to the front, because you'll be able to see that from the front. So there you go, there's the coaster. It's a really nice size. If I just show you with this bottle, you can't really actually see it, but it fits nice and neatly on there. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you have found it interesting and you've enjoyed learning how to crochet this coaster. And just as a reminder, the final part of this series will be coming out on the 30th of August, in which I will be showing you how to crochet a hair scrunchie. But please subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss it. If you did enjoy this video, please do give it a thumbs up, as well as letting me know what other crochet projects you would like to see in the future. Bye!